Today we have a sit out and buys a 3G device, spends a very large amount of money on it. Let me be hypothetical and say 10,000 rupees. Okay? And he or she, with a great deal of joy and glee, puts in the SIM card, and the first thing which happens is 455 MB of data gets downloaded to update the applications which are sitting resident on that handset. If that's not sticker shock for the first bill shock for the customer, what is? Operators don't have a role in this, but operators have to handhold that customer. Can any of the device manufacturers put in a little sequence or a dialogue which says, when you put this in, you have an option to download, do it at your convenience, do it offline if you want to, there will be a cost. It never happens. It never happens. Boom, 455 MB download and customers are screaming blue murder into the operator's helpline. So, hand holding. Huge issue. Finally, my experience in the hockey stick curve as far as the 2G was concerned was when we hit a price point as far as the device was concerned of somewhere in the region of about $20 to $25. I read an article recently which said that the Nokia 1200 was the most popular device, or was it the 1100 anyway? 1100. And that price point we remember, okay? That is when, in addition to all the regulatory policy arrangements, was when the actual uptake of subscribers really took off. If we can get close to that with a 3G device, you'll see 3G also taking off. It will happen of its own volition. Customers will educate themselves. All this 455 MB of sticker shock will be understood by that time. Price is a huge factor in the Indian environment. So I think we have to keep these few realities in mind. It is going to happen, kicking and screaming. 2G is going to move to 3G, it's going to move to 4G. Who knows what's going to happen after that, whatever G. But there is going to be a transition and the two are going to coexist in the Indian environment.
Yeah, I think very again, I think bringing us back to what the ground realities are. Mr. Jain, you wanted to add something to what's already been said.
Actually, I am speaking from the internet service provider perspective. There has been a deficit of trust between the user and service provider so far. When we say we are giving 2 MB, he says we will not get. And when 2G, 3G came, they helped widen that trust further. Because not only the continuity, that service uptime also got lost. So we need to go from scarcity to abundance is the first thing. And user experience, that should be independent of usage by my neighbors. So as Mr. Shyam told that this is 1:25 gap, so I told Ibrahim, please you shut off, let me use the data more effectively. And some young children going to the bottom of the tower and found that they get a better treatment. Another thing which we have realized is that using a spectrum when you are fixed is the root cause of the problem. People sitting in this office, in this hall, they should be using zero spectrum for whatever is being done. And this we find very clearly as we move into the bigger cities in the city of London. Enter a restaurant with written Wi-Fi. How they do it regulatory wise is their issue. Here, because of regulation, nobody discloses the Wi-Fi address. So, and then one thing in terms of, it was mentioned that 4K. 4K uses 7 GB per hour. And you will be surprised to know that Japan, they have decided to skip 4K altogether. 2020 Olympics will be shot in 8K. 8K is 100 Mbps. It uses 30 GB per hour. And this is not a theory. The World Football, they already shot it, and they already have the clips. 2016 NHK would broadcast 8K. 2020 will be in 8K only. So that is the point. And as another experience which we got, that as we moved from fiber to home service, and we tried to give unrestricted, unlimited, no FUP, and we were surprised to find usage of 300 gigabytes to 1 terabyte. So you were debating, where does he store all this information? Best Mobile gives 64 MB and 128, 64 GB, 128 GB. Even the laptops, they consume 500 MB and these things, but still they are using. And the price point they are looking forward, sweet point is 1,000 rupees. Is the price point. Now for 1,000 rupees, 300 gigabytes gets us rupees 3 per gigabyte. In 3G friends, they are charging 300 rupees per gigabyte. That is the intent today. After initial 3G of 450, and it goes or suffer the speed. Thank you.
Any reactions to what Mr. Yeah.
I just want to add a few points, Mr. See, practical perspective also I want to just say something. See, the growth of voice, data, video is indisputable. Everybody accepts that the growth has to happen and we all agree to that. But the question is, everybody has to move at the same pace. When I say everybody, the regulator has to move at the same pace. The technology has to move and the service provider. All the three have to move at the same pace. Otherwise, always there will be lag. Whenever there is a lag, there is a problem. Why I was also quoting one of the things, I remember somewhere in 2009 when we were trying to carry the voice traffic, integrating the carrier networks. SIP trunking is not allowed. They said regulatory issues. When I'm ready with SIP, luckily because Redtel is a new provider, we don't have the legacy network with us. So Redtel in my MPLS and my MGN, I have the SIP available with me. When I want to clear with SIP, there is no regulation doesn't permit. You go with the gateway systems. So one thing is, unless, as Sanjay has correctly pointed out, one has to look at the revenues. If you try to burden everybody with the legacy system, still I don't want to name the providers, they carry the media gateways, try to carry the same way. So that is how, if you start working, then at the end objective is not met. Second aspect is, as the citizens also, we also should think that the broadband factory or the broadband explosion or whatever you can call it, as Mr. Jain was also saying, it is going to happen if not today, in years to come. How are we geared up for it? If we are really geared up for it, how do we move together? Now, you leave the problem only to the service provider, let him meet the demands of the people and the public. That doesn't happen. You leave the problem to the technology person, let him provide. That also doesn't happen. See, we have to work together in this scenario. I strongly believe that we have to work in a synergy environment where everybody has to rope in. When I try to work with some of these technology providers and ask them, let us work with the revenue share model, where, because we are not sure of what is going to be the explosion. If you ask me what is the data explosion, nobody can predict. As Mr. Bali was telling that how the explosion is going to happen, we are not able to say that. But it is going to happen. Everybody watches for it. But when you ask me to put your network right in line, where are the physical infrastructure, then some minimum commits are asked. Some minimum revenues are expected from the provider to the technology person who provides it. So these things again will put a hold, will jump. Same is the case for the, either you call it as MTS or Airtel or anybody. Same is the problem which they also face. If you have to invest a lot, then people will look at the revenues. So probably we have to think now in a very synergetic way, we should evolve and then allow this explosion to occur. Well, everybody is strong in one respect or the other in India. If you synergize all of them, definitely this is possible. For that, a bit of risk is involved. I'm not talking about bloodbath of what John Chambers has talked about it. But if you synergize, then it definitely is possible to achieve it, and that's how it should move. That's one of my. Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone.
Yeah, I have a small point to make. See, the present business model of the operators is based on selling bytes. The OTT providers, they capture majority of the internet traffic which is running currently, and it will keep on increasing, and the operators will have to expand their networks, cater for that requirement. You have no arrangements with these OTT operators for any revenues, sharing, etc. So the operators will have to think in that direction, because this is going to increase, whether it is YouTube, Facebook or anything. You will have to have a different business model rather than only selling bytes in the system and getting it along with that. This needs to be thought of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think a very, very interesting discussion. Just very quickly, I think all of us have gone through this journey of looking at the phase one of the mobile revolution that we saw, and we saw the coverage capacity creation and the value that got created in the last 10-15 years. But fundamentally, if you look at the same paradigm, look at what is happening today, I think we are somewhere in similar situation what we were somewhere in 2000. So 15 years back, we were trying to figure out how we are going to go from a 1% or less than 3% everyone here, and trying to address the most important question being raised, whether if there is enough room for everyone to survive in the next 6 or 7 years or 10 years. I think fundamentally from a India perspective, I believe there is it's a different ball game altogether. The very big difference between India and any other country in the world is that we are actually we left the terrestrial infrastructure unbuilt, almost 15 years back. Mobile really leapfrogged, and it was like a job left half done. If you look at comparing any Western economy, before mobile came in, every home had a broadband connection, or every street was wired up, every street had fiber. But we actually leapfrogged. In 2000, we suddenly left. So we were at 30 million fixed line or terrestrial infrastructure, which is now shrunk down to 25 million. And nobody, because and the cost of building that infrastructure is so huge, and mobile gave us such a fantastic revenue stream that we just suddenly forgot that the terrestrial infrastructure is as important. And suddenly this data revolution is reminding us back that, I need this. Where are all the fibers? Where is all the terrestrial infrastructure? Let me pull out the fibers and see how can I use that? And that is suddenly creating this huge amount of stress, and which is resulting in painting this huge challenge in front of us, that how are we going to address this download challenge. Actually, this is a fantastic challenge in front of us. 5 years back, the same telecom service provider who is calling an OTT names today was looking for a killer application other than email. Right? So we were stuck with email, and we were saying, data doesn't have a business model because there is no other killer application other than email. 5 years back. Now 5 years hence, we suddenly wanting to call OTT players names. We want a revenue share. We want something out of them. But what they have done is what today is created such a huge, fantastic opportunity for this industry, where this industry is likely to grow at probably hundreds of times in terms of capacity, coverage, revenues, EBITDAs, so on and so forth. So I think that the fundamental aspect is to see from and now if you look at the challenge as to whether there is space, room for everyone who has done something in telecom in this country in the last 15 years. Yeah, of course. Anybody who's got any kind of asset, whether it is fixed line asset, whether it is fiber asset, whether it is radio asset, whether it is tower asset, everything is required. Everything is required to go and do that digital India, or to move from a sub 10% penetrated broadband country to 80% penetrated broadband country. So I think everyone who has some asset is welcome to the party. There is something for everyone to go and do. So from that perspective, I think nobody is going to die. Nobody is going to die as far as India is concerned. There is room for pretty much everyone to go and do that bit, to contribute, because the kind of traffic that we are expecting and we are seeing in our own networks. We created a very small network. We worked on unlicensed band. We are seeing some fantastic, in a matter of just 18 months, data usage is tripling. From 8 GB per month in homes, we are seeing 22 GB per month, on our unlicensed networks. Now this is something which, so the question is, how can we address this? What is the way in which we can come together to go and look at, creating opportunities for everyone, and then build this revenue model? Because fundamentally, the other aspect is, we in India, we have this basic tenet or a mindset that I will do everything end to end, and I think that period is over. It's not about verticalized end-to-end service providers anymore.
Collaboration.
It's all about collaboration. You've got something, he's got something, and if you don't do that, and if you don't create an ecosystem, and if you're going to work with that same mindset, I'm going to build the access, I'm going to build the NLD, I'm going to build the internet gateways, I'm going to build everything end to end, and I'm going to go and capture this customer. By the time you do that, your cost points will, so you're going to kill your own cost points.
I have one point here. In Digital India, we are targeting around 600 million users in the rural area where we are building up this network. Amount of data requirements for these 600 million, considering these OTT applications, etc., will be huge, tremendous. How are you going to get it, and what are you going to do about it? Today itself, when our presence is mainly in the urban areas, we are finding it so difficult. What is going to happen when these rural areas will be connected on fiber?
That's a great problem.
I think that's a great problem to solve.
I agree with Sridhar's point that shared infrastructure, shared networks, and everyone has whatever worth a penny should be put into the system and allowed to be shared. In fact, there comes the regulator. There has to be regulatory changes brought in to put more and more into the infrastructure bucket, so that there could be shared infrastructure created. So the policy holes have to go in many situations. I come from Vyom networks, we have the towers, but then so many things that one can really add to all that. These Wi-Fi hotspots, these fiber, infrastructure companies can come to quite a rescue when it comes.
If you look at creating infrastructure, there is almost 70-80% of your cost is in the passive infrastructure. And the passive infrastructure is something that it's a no-brainer actually. It's not our job at all. Telecom companies have no business to get into passive infrastructure.
Vijender, would you like to? I think just a point there. So talking about collaboration, so whatever I think we've achieved in last 10-15 years has been because of collaboration. Towers have been collaborated, fibers have been shared, bandwidth has been bought and used. So not that
But with a lot of reluctance.
I don't
Absolutely.
think so.
Absolutely.
I would not agree. I work for almost all operators, so I don't think. There was a time when I was working for IT and we shared even fiber rollout. So
today idea is close to 1 lakh kilometers of fiber. So that's all because of sharing with Bharti, Vodafone and others. So collaboration has happened. Maybe more collaboration is required, that you can say, but saying that collaboration hasn't happened and collaboration is not there, I agree.
No, we are not saying it's not happening. I mean, it's happening. So
Again,
the
just to come
companies-
back to you,
Yeah.
MTS was primarily a data service provider. So you have heard all the speakers, so what's your perspective and what's your vision as far as this thing is concerned?
I would say that I've seen this industry through and through, started in 94 and seen all the growth with almost all the operators. So we've always been in that catching up mode, talk about the ideas, the Airtel, so it's always been the customer has been demanding and we've been, always catching up. So that has been how, the entire industry has rolled out in the last 15-20 years. So talking about MTS also, we started with voice, suddenly realized there's a lot of potential data, got into that e-video brand and then got a lot of data customers. And we have, today close to 55% of the revenue comes from data. Not that we did something very different from, what others have been doing, or not that we did roll out a pure data network, so it was again built on the voice networks. So nothing significant was done to start with, but yes, with time we have evolved. We have migrated to IP, we have migrated to MPLS. So we have done our bits in a phased manner. So not that we immediately rolled out 2009, we rolled out a pure data network. No, it wasn't that way. So today we do close to, I think, 55 GB per site with only 2.5 megahertz of bandwidth. So I don't think any other operator can achieve that. So that we are a very small network, but the kind of levels that we compared globally with MTS, in the other countries, so nobody is even doing 50% of what we do with that small spectrum. Yeah.
Actually, on this infrastructure sharing, together, today, as our friend told, there is a Tier 1 club, which is there. Yes, they are sharing. MTS came little later, so they were little more open in trying to ask. So this Tier 1 was demanding from BSNL 15 years, 20 years ago, that BSNL was the one who was blocking them. And now the incumbent theory has changed, number one, number two. But in the recent, let us be fair to TRAI, discovering broadband delivery not quickly, they came out with marvelous recommendations. One of them says that recommended active network infrastructure sharing without restriction, whether it is an ISP, whether it is TSP, whether it is there. Now, where is that recommendation? Gone. Has it gone into a black hole? There is no answer. In the recent meeting with Mr. New Chairman TRAI, everybody asked, can you do something? He says our powers are limited to recommendation. Now, when they will react on to this thing is not known. Second recommendation, the TRAI accepted that wireline fiber is extremely important and critical, and they mentioned in very clear terms, and they said, please consider for 5 years on wireline, no AGR. And once again it was done on the same April 17, it is gone once again, there is no. So we will need to all put together an effort so that we get a decision from the government quickly. The decision may be in our favor or against us, businessmen will decide what to do. But today there is a complete lull, or this thing businessman is not able to decide whether to invest, whether not to invest.
So,
Yeah, Mr. Raj Sethia, would you like to, you have sort of been silent, so would you like
I was
to?
going to come to that. It was interesting to hear multiple points that you connect to. One of the points that Sanjay you raised was, Wi-Fi. I come from Wi-Fi background, so I'm an evangelist for Wi-Fi. So pardon me if I say something which is not relevant for all of you. He talked about Wi-Fi being the king indoors, something of that sort. And people talked about infrastructure bottleneck being essentially on the backhaul, significantly on the backhaul side, which is the humongous nature of data pipes that are needed. But from my experience, what I genuinely believe is one problem that India, most of us don't talk about, which pains me every morning, every evening, is the last mile connectivity on fiber to make sure that Westin does not need to use spectrum. Okay, Westin may be a bad example because Westin can have fiber connectivity. Talk about the coffee shops, talk about a Bandra market, talk about who does Sector 29? Can you afford to provide the bandwidth that you want to provide, and you assuming that Wi-Fi will provide that, and on air you'll have 4G and 5G, and on ground you'll have fiber. But where is the fiber to carry that last mile, last 100 meters to the nearest home? It's not there. So that's something which I don't have an answer to, and I know very little about the technicalities of what it takes to solve this problem. But I mean that's something which I would request all of you to deliberate upon, and maybe throw some some answers for a lot of people like us who struggle with this from day in and day out basis. Trying to set up a Wi-Fi network which is still operating. So the response is welcome, sir.
Yeah. So if nobody else has any observation or anything more to add, I'd like to come to you, Vikram, and ask you, I think as the association, the voice of the industry, and a lot of things being discussed here are that we need to work together, we need to collaborate more, there is reluctance, we need more clarity, faster decision making from the government. Some of these are stuck because of regulatory and policy issues. So if data is the future and there's so much potential there and so much more can be done and everybody is gearing up for that, then what is it that an organization like yours would be doing, or what is your sort of perspective on that?
So Ibrahim, thanks. Firstly, I apologize to everybody for joining up late. But the conversation has been pretty interesting, and I quite like Ravi's point about Uberization of the network resources, and if it's available and it's good for sharing, can I kind of bring it and use it for a while? So that's an interesting one.
And Mr. Jain talked about the tier 1 clubs.
Yeah, so the Uberization would kind of, I don't know how it will happen, or whether there is, technically speaking, that if there's a resource here and it's available for 2 hours, can I utilize it? Especially in central business districts, or suddenly if you have a trade fair go up and there's somebody's got a resource there or something. So it's an interesting thought nonetheless. And of course, to take the cue from what he mentioned and from an industry point of view. So there are two, one of the things is when you see it as a $2 ARPU market, essentially we all have to focus, and part of our focus is how do you grow the market? If you're going to continuously want to eat in the $2 pie, you are only going to continue to, get, only pennies worth. Right? So it's the collective wisdom of the industry would be, what are the measures that we can take to grow that pie? Right? And obviously the government has a big role in it. So from a data point of view, if we put ourselves into the shoes of who are the fat cat users that are likely to come. So in the education sector, I'm seeing a lot of, the cloud people are looking at the education sector. What Mr. Agarwal mentioned, that rural area there will be a lot of demand if the fiber does happen as and when it happens. But one of the challenges is you're going to reserve 2 of those fiber only for G2C services over a government user network. So the fat cat customer sitting there, if it is the police station, their education department or the school, and the health center is going to be serviced only by government. So what is left for the other guys to provide will again be the poor farmer or somebody, not an institutional user. So coming back, in the education sector or the health sector, or if you take a transport or logistics, so how can we work with those sectors, the telecom sector and those sectors, including their regulators, to help grow the market? And that would facilitate investments, and as the investments into the sector are the kind of debts that we are dealing with. So that's one part as an association. The other part is that how do I get fiber to sector 29? How do I get fiber to this place? Last week or a fortnight back, NDMC has put market rates in NDMC areas. It's something like I don't know what, 7,000 rupees a square feet. Means whatever is the rental above the ground, they want that rental below the ground.
in Connaught. So 10 times, right? So can you imagine? So if that is the approach, so what we had mentioned and for quite some time, until there is a statutory national ROW think once policy, it's not going to happen. We have to face it. SoftBank CEO came here, he said, come on guys, you can have a digital India plan, you'll have very nice projects like good Indians, bolte bahut hai, kaam pe pata nahi kabhi bhi nikla hoga. So from that point of view, we, under the Telegraph Act, if you can manage to get the rules in place. Now, what the chairman interestingly said was, for the last 20 years, we've not interfered with the states putting in their local taxes and levies and in a Panchayati Raj area. So now if the centre, with the new government, intends to change or rock that apple cart, there would be ripples with the states, right? So how the government would approach it is interesting, but as, if we get other sectors to also say, hey, we are hurting, Digital India is hurting, not going to happen, why don't you follow this path of a statutory thing? And by the way, if you allow the statutory rules for right of way come in, you will obviously benefit by the much touted figure of 10% broadband with 1 or 2% GDP growth in the state. Of course, from industry we've got the reports. If you compare a Punjab, incidentally, in the report we did to them, Punjab is the only state amongst the various states where there is fiber available for pooling.
Yeah. That's right. For pooling.
For pooling, they want to pool some fiber. Means if I got spare fiber, I can offer it to pool at district level. Right? There's only one state when they push out. So these are some of the things that, from a COI point of view. The other thing that we've asked for is to help build infrastructure. We've already put in a bid for tax-free bonds for telecom infrastructure. So if there's a company which wants to lay out towers or fiber, I mean they've allowed it in the last budget for I guess railways and power, and just because they happen to be public or government entities, while we are working on behalf of the government as a licensee, we are entitled to similar benefits. So this, while we've written to the finance ministry, but it's the ability of the parent ministry to push your case and argue your case. So hopefully the DoT argues our case well enough in the forthcoming budget. Let's see what happens. Last I'll leave it at, I'm just curious to know, if we all wanted, somebody wanted why indoors, why should my mobile phone still connect to the over wireless? I'm curious to understand as to why has the fixed line phone not become as smart as my mobile? Because one of the reasons is the directory, right? Today I don't remember anybody's number, and if I have to dial from that phone, I know. Why can't we have a voice call feature or the same thing docks into something, and I use it as I really don't know the reasons of. I don't citing directly, but other features as apps or whichever.
It's a fixed mobile convergence. Only the limitation in this topic.
I think nobody wants to invest into that. Phones are available. You want to invest in Japan and Korea,
it's something like broadband over power lines.
That also gets a topic
Yeah.
Like it is simply in India we got such a small percentage of population in cars, so we know that demand is going to go up. But supposing actually so many people start using cars, what will happen? The same is the case with the data. Like such a small percentage is using, and you know that the users will be doing and all that. Now, is there any single entity, like would at least look at holistically, like what all we need to deliver what is required? Is it individual operators need a requirement, or is it some centralized body who has to see that? Okay, in 10 years' time, this will be the requirement of that all, this will be the requirement of all this infrastructure, and how to provide it.
So can COI take this up as a central body which really
if all the recommendations of the GRAI and the COI put together, वो 10% भी as a target, बाकी you forget the rest. You know, if we have a monthly or a bi-monthly review meeting with the secretary, saying last time we spoke this and this, each time you at least let the low-hanging fruit go. You know, if on one side you got the digital India thing, I really don't know what is the responsibility timelines against each of the 9 pillars, right? I'm sure there must be one on some government thing because they are, you know, the PMO is asking for a regular update, about what happened in the last 2 months, and I'm given to understand, Secretary, you know better, would be saying, yes, everything is hunky-dory, everything's on track, it will happen. But we know it's not happening. Sorry?
One I can tell you.
So I think let's yeah. So any other so far whatever has been discussed, any other remarks or any other yeah, please, yeah.
I attended GMSC and where I was speaking on the topic future of the technology by 2020. And there, right now, whatever I'm listening and interested in discussion over there, I have a question now. One, there is a digital India, the smart India you want to make. Of course, the infrastructure people, the operators, the device company and the OTT, everyone has to collaborate and then it will going to happen. But what about, I was saying that we have a smart hospital, you can say smart medical services, smart traffic, smart cities, smart country. What about the smart operators? Why I am saying this? You all are worried about the WhatsApp calls and everything. But this buzz was there when the Skype calls are started. Of course, somebody will come to the picture and make an app, something particular. Now, right now the shift, like smartphones are there, but if you see the smart wearables are also coming, and by 2019, as per the prediction, it will go up to 436% of the business worldwide. That means somewhere around every 1% out of 20 will going to use the wearables. And wearables means you have a chance to develop your health services, you have chance to develop your security services, which you can take as a Save India, because we are working on this wearable for Save India. And there are lots of things which will come up. So now you are just thinking about the data and the voice. What about the services which will come up in 2019? If you will try to manage and compress the data as per the wearables also, as per the devices also. Plus, think about all these things, then I think you will win somewhere better than others. That is what my point is.
Ibrahim, I have a point.
Yeah.
And the point I have is if you listen to Vikram, you get a slightly depressed perspective of digital India. But I think if you look at the base part of the country, if you look at demographics, you look at the availability of cheaper phones, a very healthy 3G ecosystem, you look at the evolving 4G space, and if you were to contrast this to any other country in Asia Pac, there are not so many headwinds and tailwinds which are essentially driving growth. And then you look at smartphone penetration, and you look at smartphone penetration around 15%. If you look at balance sheets of operators in developed markets, and you look at mobile data or mobile data as a percentage of ARPU, in markets where smartphone penetration is in the range of more than 50%, actually ARPU is around 65% is coming from data. If you look at balance sheets of say, the soft banks of the world, I agree with Shyam's point that they have substantially 4 times the number of resources compared to an equivalent operator, and they may have a better ARPU because of demographics. But if I were to then contrast that same model to similar emerging markets in ASEAN, they have the best EBITDA. And the reason they have the best EBITDA is they've been, like, if you ask me, Indonesia and Philippines are probably the most chattiest countries in the world, whether it's with respect to WhatsApp or whether it's with respect to Facebook. And the reason they have really taken off is because they have packaged data in terms of sachets. If you look at in Indonesia, a movie clip, a music clip, a WhatsApp usage, a Facebook usage is actually offered at 5 and 10 rupees per day subscription models. And actually, the OTT player is not seen as a foe. He's seen as a friend who's driving usage. So to Rajat's point, obviously we need to scale up our subscribers in terms of being able to make that transition from 2G to 3G to even usage. You know, I know wire, power and spectrum is not going to solve a lack of skill and awareness in scaling up the user community and the subscriber base. But I think there is a significant opportunity. And I won't be surprised if operators like Bharti, Idea and a number of others would have data as a percentage of ARPU being close to 50% in the next 3 years. So, and we're going to be on par, and I'm sure that unbundling, that innovation would require some more spectrum, some more infrastructure, but that opportunity, that latent demand is there. I think it's a question of can we build enough supply to cater to the demand and not the other way around.
One last point I'm very tempted to talk about it. Sridhar mentioned this, Raj mentioned this, Rob also started this, Vikram actually dwelt upon it. An example and contrast. Over the last 2 years, China Mobile created 1 million 4G sites. And so we talked to leading operators as part of our comparing notes exercise. And one question I asked is, how many of these 1 million sites have fiber backhaul? The answer was 1 million. So, and then I read a survey somewhere which says that mobile users have surpassed, mobile using households have surpassed electricity, houses which have electricity and houses which have potable water. And again, to Vikram's point, we've been representing saying that why can't we convert telecom into an essential service now with the relevance of it, and occupancy certificates. When you walk into a new house, to make that occupancy ready, he needs a power ready certificate and he needs a water ready certificate. Why can't he need a fiber ready certificate as well to drive that? And one question I kind of dared to ask the TRA chairman in one of the open houses is, we're talking about no-fill, Mr. Agarwal, and we're doing a great job, I'm sure. I'm not undermining the rural intent of driving no-fill. But before that, do we have an urban version of no-fill? Do we have a sector 29?
Fantastic point.
No, we don't have that.
Fantastic point.
Yes.
So I mean these 2-3 points, to make that infrastructure ready to take that 60, 100, 200 times growth of data to be written on it.
Absolutely.
Unless these kind of fundamental interventions happen at a policy level, I think we are much short of the famous Digital India dream, and whatever we do jointly as an industry, if it is not collaborated. So to your point on collaboration, I think a public-private collaboration is what is needed from a policy perspective much more than anything else at a more fundamental level. Thank you.
Just one last point on what Shyam said. I think the size of Digital India that is being envisioned. I think as a country, we tend to always underestimate our challenges, and exactly that is what we will end up doing, because the kind of data penetration that is likely to happen and the kind of demands that the data pull is going to create on networks. At this point, I don't think that the entire industry and the government understands the size of the problem it is, because it is, we are talking of 100 times more capacity to be created. It's not small. We are talking of 100x capacity to be created. Now 100x capacity cannot be created in 5 years unless you think out of the box. So if Google can think Loon, right? And the first time I heard about Loon, I thought it was a joke actually. Now if Google can think Loon, I think we need to really think of something really different. And some of the points I'll just last message I will leave before we can move is, I think I read and I this has been this whole thought of how to backhaul, how to create more infrastructure has been on me for quite some time. And I read that there is Japan, there are case studies of Japan, and there are case studies of cities in the US who have used the entire drainage system to pull fiber. They use the entire drainage system to pull fiber and create backhaul capacities. So the NOFN of the city need not be a new duct system that you need to create. Because if you try to create an NOFN now, it will take you another 5 years in all the cities to be dug up.
Yeah, see, the issue which Mr. Vikram has raised is the ROW basically in the cities.
No, ROW is no more an issue. If you open this revenue model for every municipality to earn revenue out of pulling fiber.
See, now what the government is thinking to make a state-led model under Parliament, where the state will lay fiber from the district up to the Gram Panchayats, and where multiple fibers would be there, which can be even given on lease to the anybody else. So need not everybody keep on digging the fiber everywhere. So basically, the ROW issue will be resolved there. But some of the states are coming up in the same model to extend it even up to the from the district
We
to
have
the
to
state
think
capitals.
completely out of box.
Yes.
I think we have to think completely out of box. If the whole world can get connected on submarine cables,
Yeah.
right? Why can't we throw cables into rivers?
Yes. Why not? Why not? It can be done.
You know, why can't we throw cables into all the rivers?
Yes. Very much. It can be done.
Yeah. So it is digital India.
Yeah.
You need to really, pull your socks up if you really are serious about digital India.
Digital India is a serious subject, which is
I think I had in fact said I had sent two mails to a couple of you. I think there are lots of things to be discussed, but I think we really run out of time now.
Yeah.
Any last one or two comments we wanted to, for instance, we wanted to discuss about how this simplification of networks will happen. We wanted to discuss about how the cable and wireline they will sort of collaborate for the infrastructure part, possible working relationships and possible working relationships and assets that can be sort of co-developed between the telcos and the cable players. So there are a lot of things that we can discuss, and I think all of them are going to without. I don't know how much time will it take for the government to wake up to do a lot of these or to fulfill a lot of our wishes. But I think these are some of the smaller incremental steps which can be taken to at least keep the momentum going. Yeah, you wanted to.
Okay, so I have two comments to make. So one, since Sanjay is here, we talk about technology upgradation and everything. But if we talk about upgradation of BDSs, so BDSs can house 2G, 3G, 4G. So we've done that, we've achieved that. Then we come to the transport layer. We still have to use a Cisco with a microwave. So when do we see that integration happening? So you can answer that later. The other point for the industry that I have here is, and I think I started my career in 92, I was into antenna R&D in 94. And we were talking about putting patch panel antennas and actual patches, copper patches, so that the sizes could be reduced. There has been a lot of R&Ds. A lot of people came up with, there were companies in New Zealand, Intel was one of them, which shut down. So there were a lot of people who came with the smart antennas. And today, why I am talking about this is, so today what is happening is you have a tower, you have a company which is a 2G, which is a 900, which is 1800, which is a 2300. So we still have those multi-band antennas, but we've not been able to reduce the size of the antenna. I still want that 17 dBi, and I talk about physics, that since physics says that 17 dBi, 900 megahertz, you need a 2-meter antenna. So not a lot has gone into this antenna R&D. So if you can stack dipoles vertically, and we were talking about stacking these dipoles horizontally way back in 94, 95, nothing has happened, and nobody even talks about that. And when we talk about the call drops and things like that today, so most of this I can dedicate to the network hygiene that is missing on the telecom towers. And antenna being I think the most important part, everybody neglects. So you have an antenna placed horizontally next to each other, so you face those physical interference. I'm not even talking about what it radiates, but it creates a physical interference. So you have 1800 antenna, next to it you have a 900 antenna sitting there. So I don't know what the industry is going to do. Nobody talks about it.
So maybe I should respond. This is a question. I think, I can tell you, probably I don't have a direct answer to your specific question, but if you look at router, if I start with that basic thing, it used to be a stuff that you had in a pretty neat air-conditioned kind of place, and it was, that's how it was built and that's how it was maintained. So I can tell you over the years, now we put in routers in the access environment. I think we have seen places where, the environmental conditions are so bad, even if you put it out there in a week, it gains rust and so on. So I think we've dealt with a lot of those issues. I think 903s, some of our products which are used in access, we have built them in India. I think they are manufactured, designed here in our Bangalore facility. And it was because one of you came to us and said, I need that, and we made it. So if this is a requirement, I think for us like us, these give us that insight, and we go back and see if we can develop a business case. I mean, that is why it's not one of you saying it. If all of you say it, we'll take that action, we'll go back, co-create it with you. So that was that point. And second, Mr. Vikram, I think you talked about some vertical industries. You said, if we go try to make vertical industries, I'm sure like health, logistics, education, and a few others you named. I think we did coming back to where I started in the numbers, we did a research on a global level. We're saying that IOE will generate some $19 trillion. We did a specific research for India, and we found, and we took only 4 or 5 use cases of those, specifically what you mentioned. And for next 10 years, it came to $580 billion. So what I'm trying to say here is that some of that value generation that you do for vertical industries, what you're doing is you're making them efficient, you're digitizing their processes. That value you can bring back into the telecom industry. I think that will fund some of the sources that Shyam, you were talking about are missing today. And of course, so I think, so IOE from that standpoint is a great opportunity, but I think we as an industry need to create models together. I think it will not happen with a private guy raising the hand. It has to be partnership with you folks, the policymakers, the regulators, really giving you a big blessing and show the speed in some of those decisions. And I'm pretty certain that it will not happen overnight or over the next 10 years. You will see you generating value out of things we could not imagine when we set up these business plans for starters. So I think that was my point I wanted to say.
So as I was saying that, and there were lots of things that we wanted to discuss, but again in the interest of time and...
Ibrahim, I would like to add something to you.
Yeah, please.
So I know the way of looking at it is, I think a lot of discussion which happened around the table was in terms of, how do we really create that capacity, how do we really make the network available and be available for the end consumer to use correctly. The way I also look at it is that, with so much of data usage, it itself will generate a lot of data which will need to be analyzed and then used meaningfully. I'm not too sure at this point in time whether the service providers meaning the telecom service providers or the vendors, are even equipped or geared to actually handle that kind of data and make sense out of it and actually add value to the life of the consumer. I mean, I think that's an element that will have to be really thought through when we are talking of actually making, the data network or the cables or the fiber available to the end user. I think that's something that will definitely have to be more in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a point.
So, Brian, the last comment from my side, I think we need to look at a collaborative story here. So when we look at the demand and we look at the supply, we know that there's a huge demand, and we all are leading service providers. And when we look at the capacity that we have, everybody knows that we need to scale up to meet the demand and to scale up the capacity. And you have a collaborative story. I mean, there are service providers who have better last miles than others. There are service providers who have got application ready networks, and there are service providers who are good at providing access networks.
can we create a collaborative story where we can all utilize the uniqueness of each service provider, and then we can look at the entire market, and then we can devise a revenue model which suits all of us. And this is something which we need to look forward in future. We really need to meet this demand. And some time back, I was part of Innovator Club in Silicon Valley where people were talking about, so I have a plan, let's say 5 GB in my mobile, and I don't use 5 GB. So I only consume 3 GB. Can I pass on that 2 GB which is not unutilized back to service provider, and that can be utilized by anybody in the pool? So those kinds of revenue model are getting, in thought process, and these are getting developed. So probably we need to see.
This could perhaps be a result of more collaboration, more coming together. And
So Google Fi or
yeah. So I mean, models are coming, and that is something we need to really look forward to when we need to really meet such.
Network transformation. He's basically looking after network transformation for the operators in the Asia Pacific and the Japan region. And this again being an area where I think most of the things or the examples which were quoted whether by Shyam or by Rajat were about this region itself. So what's happening there? But very quickly summarize and also tell us about.
So look, I think from a global perspective, I think data is growing across the globe. If you look at operators, while there are WhatsApps of the world, they are also trying to do the overization of voice. We saw this in the cable industry. Netflix came, but it didn't mean that Comcast actually became defunct. It did. Actually, Comcast built broadband pipes, and they are now neutral, whether it's Netflix, Apple TV, Google TV. As long as they get $60 or $80 for a high-speed broadband subscriber, they're really happy. And Comcast market capitalization is $200 billion, but that's on the back of the fact that they have 21 million broadband customers. They may probably have 18 million digital subscribers today, and that might go to 15 or 10. So I feel in every industry, when there is disruption, there is opportunity. And if I look at it, I think the new norm is going to be around mobile data segmentation. I completely agree with Rajat that in this market, in India there are analog natives and there are digital natives, and there is opportunity on both sides of the equation. So I think the way I see it is, when you look at this function of network transformation, if I look at the evolution of telecom operators, you had the radio or cell engineering team, you had the evolution of the transmission engineering team, which is the switching team, and then you have this new kid in the block, which was IP in the last 1 decade. What we are seeing is all networks are converging to an IP player. Operators cannot afford to have a optical infrastructure, a voice infrastructure, a data infrastructure, and that's the whole business of network transformation. It's about convergence, it's about running multiple things. We are talking not only of single domain network sharing, we are actually talking, we had a very fascinating discussion today on multi-operator, multi-domain network sharing. And that actually is something we are beginning to see in terms of inter-carrier standards body activity, where actually today, if you make a voice over LTE call from operator 1 to operator 2, the signaling is going to be so sophisticated that it will figure out if the latency requirements can be met, and if it can be met, the voice call will go through. So my sense is this whole, we're going to see a lot of innovation around network sharing, and that's actually addressing the core problem of cost and leverage that every operator would need to take care of. And that's what we are seeing in all the markets. We are also seeing that while data, the good thing that operators are realizing is, unlike in voice where you had peak hours of usage, the beauty of data is there is usage all through the day, and that actually helps them normalize their cost, and there is no interconnect cost. So actually data, if it is priced right, is affordable, and it can be a very profitable business line. And that's why we are seeing EBITDAs of many operators actually increasing. They love more smartphones. You're going to continue to see smarter phones. You're going to see smarter networks. And I feel both in developed as well as in emerging markets, data will continue to improve top line and bottom line of operators. So if I look at it from an India perspective, we have 175 million subscribers today.
probably go to 500 million in the next 5 years. Each subscriber today takes 365 MB. You know, in Japan they take 3 GB. So I think there's going to be a 5 to 7-fold or 10-fold increase there. I know realization today is around 27 paisa. But I'm saying as this usage goes, that particular, if with the 3 GB usage, that same thing from an ARPU perspective would be close to voice in the next 3 to 5 years. So when I look at it from a global perspective as well as from an India perspective, I think there is more upside. And there are obviously real challenges and there are things that need to be fixed. But that's the sense I get.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, Vish. I think so. It's not all that bad, and I'm sure there is a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. And with that, I would close this and thanks all of you for really taking time off from your very, very busy schedules to be with us this evening. We have a panel here in Bombay also on Friday, so if any of you want your colleagues to join that panel, we would be more than welcome. We're happy to invite them. Once again, thank you so much. If you can also fill up the feedback form which is being given. I'm told that there is a small token of appreciation at the registration desk. Give it back there. Well, thank you so much once again, and please join us for cocktails and dinner. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
मैं क्या कहूँगा सिटी वन टू वन रियलिटी तो बहुत सारी आती है
मैं कुछ आप This is we have a meeting here.
That's not a benefit. That's not a benefit. What they want to do today is the 1800. It's so fragmented. You find customers in it's harmonization. खरीदने और बेचने की बात नहीं है मेरी बात ये सारा $500 million 3 years capex budget. 600. I have to run a network on that. If you are able to find a solution, what would make it I don't think doing well which is very different from demand. It's like a missing phenomenon. If you're able to get probably be a billion. Because everybody wants it. That's an opportunity. The question here is and regulation. Because they will take time. They will take their time.
I